I'm really happy and grateful to God because I know that definitely I could not have achieved this on my own. It's really due to God's grace that I was able to score this mark. Uh, my parents made this choice for me at that time. They thought, and even now I think, that you study in a special school only for 10 or 12 years. After that, you are going to live with normal people. So, when you study in a special school for 12 years, you are cut off from the rest of the world. You see only the people who look like you. And suddenly, when you go out into the normal world, you'll feel confused, you'll find it very difficult to adjust. So my parents thought that instead of shifting from a special school to a normal school in 11th or 12th in college, which would be really difficult for me, it was better to study in a normal school with normal children from the very beginning. That had its own challenges because when you become the only different person, people may not like that. People may have too much curiosity about you, and so I was bullied when I was young, and I was kept at a distance even when I grew older. But I know that even as I move on in life, I will face these kinds of challenges. So facing them from the early childhood itself has made me stronger to face the bigger challenges of life. I studied maths only till 10th. In 9th and 10th, I had an option of skipping maths, but my teachers and even my parents and I were really, we really had this idea that I should have at least 10th standard, basic 10th standard knowledge of maths. I should have at least that in my hand. And again, 9th standard, half of the chapters in our textbook were geometry chapters. So my teachers gave me the option of not studying those chapters, skipping them, because 9th is not a public exam. They would ask me questions from other chapters, or they would ask me questions that had no figures. But I said, no miss, I want to study it. I know it will be hard, but I want to study it just like the rest. Till 9th, my mother taught me maths, and then I had tuition. The figures in the textbooks are really complicated, and all of these lines, each line has a name: A, B, B, C, B, D. All the angles also have these names. So for a normal student, they can just look at what is the figure and they can identify which is angle A, which is angle B. But I have only this mental image that I have created, and I have to keep referring this mental image to find out which is angle A, which is angle B. I still remember sometimes some questions I spent 30 to 40 minutes each for just one question, and when the figure was too complicated, it took a lot of time for me to get that figure into my head. And other than geometry, even calculations, I did mental calculations mostly. Even after I dropped mathematics, when I took economics in 11th and 12th, though I wrote on the computer, I was not allowed to use the calculator, so I did all my calculations in the mind. That was also tedious. For economics, the calculations were quite simple, but for maths, there were complicated numbers. So by the time I finished a 4-hour long maths exam, I would be physically tired. I would have no energy left. So maths was a big challenge and a nightmare for me, but I was able to score 94% for maths without any of these. And again, there also God's grace was with me, and I had so many good people to support me. From my early childhood, my father used to tell me stories. That's how everything started. That's how my love for reading started. And in 4th standard, I started reading books on the computer, and that became my only hobby. I did nothing else except read. Even now, my main hobby is reading. I spend hours reading, and when I read, I imagine the scenes in my mind. It's like I am watching a movie that I have created in my mind. So reading fueled my imagination, and in 5th grade, I had to write a paragraph during my English exam about the rainy day. That was a topic. So when I wrote it, my English teacher really liked my essay and she read it out in class and she appreciated me very much. That was the beginning, and that is when I realized that even I can write something. So I gained confidence. I was able to write a group of 6 short stories about 6 young girls, and finally on July 15th I published it as a book called Welcome Home. And for my parents, I am not special. All three of us are special equally, and I am just one among their 3 children. And one important thing my parents always emphasized is they never told me that I am different. They always said, "You are just like the other children. You can do anything that the other children can." That is the attitude that they instilled in me. If they hadn't done so, I wouldn't have become so independent. I would still be clinging to people, wanting them to do things for me. But from the very beginning, because of this attitude that they instilled in me, I wanted to do everything that my friends were doing. So when my friends went for running races, I also wanted to run. My parents used to take me to the school ground. They used to take my hand and they used to run with me, and they used to tell me, "See, you can run just like them." And I loved coloring when I was small, and my parents never told me, "You are blind, you cannot become a good painter or a good artist." But they bought me coloring pencils, crayons, coloring books, everything I needed. And even when I did something, it was probably a scribbled work, half of the color was outside the outline, they would still say that what I did was awesome, what I did was beautiful. They never discouraged me and they never placed limits on what I could do.